I'm Sarah Mitchell, and I never thought Easter Sunday would end with me standing in my parents' marble foyer, holding a bucket of dirty mop water while my entire extended family watched in stunned silence as the most successful man in Austin's cleaning industry walked through our front door. What started as another holiday where I was treated like unpaid help became the moment that changed everything forever. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Growing up in Austin, Texas was supposed to be my ticket to the good life, but instead it became a masterclass in never measuring up to impossible standards. My parents, David and Linda Mitchell, built their real estate empire from the ground up, specializing in luxury homes throughout the Hill Country. When I was 7 years old, Dad's company, Mitchell Real Estate Development, was just him with a pickup truck and a toolbox, building custom decks for middle-class families in South Austin. I have vivid memories of those early days, riding shotgun in Dad's dusty Ford while he explained the difference between pressure-treated lumber and cedar planking. Mom would pack us sandwiches wrapped in aluminum foil, and we'd eat lunch sitting on sawhorses while Dad sketched house plans on the back of receipts. The smell of fresh-cut wood and Mom's homemade lemonade in mason jars filled those afternoons with a warmth that I didn't realize I'd spend years trying to recapture. Everything changed when Dad landed his first $1 million custom home contract. Suddenly we weren't the family eating lunch on construction sites anymore. We became the family that needed to look the part of successful developer. Our modest ranch house in Zilker was traded for a sprawling estate in Westlake Hills, complete with a circular driveway and fountain that cost more than most people's cars. Mom transformed from the woman who painted our kitchen cabinets herself into someone who hired interior designers and attended charity luncheons where the appetizers cost $50 a plate. She developed opinions about thread counts and wine vintages, speaking with an authority that seemed to emerge from nowhere. Dad, meanwhile, became obsessed with expansion, talking constantly about lot acquisitions and zoning permits, while his phone buzzed with calls from investors and city council members. Then there was my sister Emma, 3 years younger than me, who somehow became the poster child for everything our newly successful family represented. Where I was quiet and observant, Emma was magnetic and ambitious. She could charm Dad's business partners at company barbecues while I helped Mom carry plates back to the kitchen. She understood profit margins before she could drive, while I was more interested in the actual construction process and how homes were built to last. My 13th birthday should have been special, but it crystallized everything wrong with our family's new dynamic. For weeks, Mom had promised we'd celebrate at my favorite Tex-Mex restaurant on South Lamar, just our family like we used to do before everything became about appearances and business connection. I'd been counting down the days, even picked out a new dress from Target that I'd been saving birthday money to buy. The morning of my birthday, I bounded downstairs expecting birthday pancakes and maybe some early presents. Instead, I found my parents clustered around Emma at the granite kitchen island, gushing over a certificate she'd received for winning the middle school business plan competition. Her project was a mock real estate venture that Dad had clearly helped her develop, complete with market analysis and financial projections that no 11-year-old could have created alone. By dinner time, my birthday celebration had evolved into a networking opportunity. The reservation was changed to accommodate Dad's new business partner and his family, who wanted to congratulate the future real estate mogul. When they brought out my birthday cake, it read, "Congratulations to the Mitchell family rising stars in blue and gold frosting." I blew out 13 candles while everyone toasted Emma's entrepreneurial spirit and Dad's brilliant mentorship. As we entered high school, the gap between Emma and me widened into a chasm. I discovered a passion for organization and cleaning during those years, finding peace in transforming chaotic spaces into functional, beautiful environments. Our housekeeper Maria taught me the satisfaction of deep cleaning techniques, the meditative quality of scrubbing grout until it sparkled, and the pride that comes from making someone's home feel fresh and welcoming. While other teenagers complained about chores, I genuinely enjoyed the process of cleaning. There was something therapeutic about the before and after transformation, the way a cluttered room could become a sanctuary with the right attention and care. I started helping neighbors with spring cleaning projects, organizing garage sales, and even cleaning houses for family friends who were too busy to manage it themselves. Mom's reaction to my interest was immediate and dismissive. "You're not going to make a career out of being a maid, Sarah," she'd say whenever she caught me researching cleaning products or watching organizational videos online. "We didn't build this life so you could scrub other people's toilets." Dad was equally discouraging, suggesting I focus on real skills like business development or property management if I wanted to be part of the family legacy. Meanwhile, Emma was being groomed to take over Mitchell Real Estate Development. Business magazines appeared on her bedside table. She shadowed Dad at construction sites, wearing a hard hat with "Future CEO" printed across the front, and her high school guidance counselor helped her map out a path to UT's business school. When family friends asked about our future plans, Dad would beam while describing Emma's trajectory, then change the subject when it came to my interests. When I announced my intention to study hospitality management with a focus on facilities operations, the family response was swift and brutal. "We're not paying for you to learn how to change bedsheets," Dad declared during what was supposed to be a college planning dinner. "If you want to throw away your potential on service work, you can figure out how to pay for it yourself." Emma, meanwhile, was being courted by UT's business school with promises of internships and networking opportunities. The college brochures that appeared on our kitchen table featured successful alumni and impressive starting salary. When Emma got her acceptance letter, Dad took us all to dinner at the most expensive steakhouse in Austin, treating her admission like a business merger worthy of celebration. I applied for every scholarship and grant I could find, eventually piecing together enough financial aid to attend Austin Community College's hospitality program while working nights cleaning office buildings downtown. Emma moved into a luxury apartment near campus, complete with a BMW and unlimited credit card for educational expenses. I shared a studio apartment in East Austin with my roommate Jessica Chen, splitting the rent and surviving on ramen noodles and determination. Those college years tested every ounce of resilience I possessed. My days started at 5 in the morning with commercial cleaning shifts at downtown office complexes, followed by afternoon classes in hospitality management, business fundamentals, and facility operation. Evenings were spent on homework and building my small cleaning business with residential clients who appreciated attention to detail and eco-friendly products. Meanwhile, my family's commentary on my life choices became a constant background noise of disappointment. "Such a waste of potential," Mom would sigh during our increasingly brief phone conversations. "Emma just made Dean's List again and landed a summer internship with a Fortune 500. Dad would add his own observations about my phase of playing house with cleaning supplies, as if my dedication to creating healthy, beautiful living spaces was some kind of elaborate hobby. Holiday dinners became endurance tests, where every conversation somehow circled back to Emma's achievements and my apparent lack of direction. "Still playing with spray bottles and sponges?" Dad would ask, deliberately minimizing the business skills I was developing. "Maybe you should consider getting a real estate license as backup," Mom would suggest, as if my carefully built client base and growing reputation were temporary distractions from my inevitable return to the family fold. Emma would sit quietly during these exchanges, occasionally offering a sympathetic smile that somehow made everything worse. I could see the pity in her eyes, the way she looked at me like a charity case who needed rescue from my own poor judgment. When she did speak up, it was usually to redirect attention back to her latest business coup or networking success. The breaking point came during Thanksgiving of my junior year. I had just landed a contract to manage facilities for a new boutique hotel in South Austin, beating out several established companies for the opportunity. When I shared the news, Dad glanced up from his phone long enough to say, "That's nice. Maybe someday you'll realize cleaning up after other people isn't a sustainable career path." Something inside me finally snapped. I placed my napkin on the table, thanked Mom for dinner, and walked out without explanation. I spent that night at Jessica's apartment and drove back to my place the next morning with a new understanding of where I stood in the family hierarchy. After graduation, I reduced contact to obligatory holidays and brief text message exchanges, focusing instead on building the life I wanted rather than trying to earn approval for choices I'd already made. Creating my own chosen family became essential for survival and growth. Jessica understood family dysfunction better than most, having grown up with her own set of impossible expectations and cultural pressures. We spent holidays together, creating traditions that felt authentic rather than performative, cooking meals that brought joy instead of stress. My small cleaning business evolved into something more meaningful than I'd originally imagined. I specialized in eco-friendly deep cleaning services, working with families who valued sustainability and health-conscious home environment. Each satisfied client led to referrals, and soon I was managing a team of 5 part-time cleaners, while maintaining my own roster of regular residential customers. The work was physically demanding but emotionally fulfilling in ways I struggled to explain to people who saw cleaning as beneath them. There was profound satisfaction in transforming someone's chaotic home into a peaceful sanctuary, in seeing the relief on a working mother's face when she walked into a spotless kitchen after a long day, in knowing that my attention to detail was creating healthier environments for families with young children or elderly relatives. My tiny apartment in East Austin became my laboratory for testing new cleaning products and organizational systems. I documented before and after photos of every project, built a social media presence around sustainable cleaning practices, and slowly developed a reputation as someone who could tackle the most challenging residential situations with creativity and care. The emotional toll of family rejection isn't something you simply overcome with positive thinking and hard work. I started therapy during my mid-20s, initially just to process the anger and disappointment that followed me like a shadow. Those sessions revealed patterns of emotional neglect that stretched back to early childhood, helping me understand that my family's inability to see my worth wasn't a reflection of my actual value. Understanding this intellectually provided some relief, though the emotional wounds remained tender for years. When potential clients asked about my background, I developed a standard response about growing up in Austin with parents in real estate development. It was easier than explaining that my family had essentially written me off for choosing a career they considered beneath their social status. Jessica became my anchor during those difficult years, along with a small circle of friends who understood that family isn't always the people you're born to. We spent holidays together, celebrated each other's successes without competition or judgment, and provided support during setbacks that didn't require explanations or apologies. By my late 20s, I'd established enough of a reputation to expand beyond individual residential clients. My business, Green Clean Austin, was Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Managing facilities for several small businesses, and handling deep cleaning contracts for vacation rental property. I'd moved to a better apartment in a safer neighborhood, and even hired 2 full-time employees who shared my commitment to environmental responsibility and exceptional service standards. The relationship with my family remained distant but functional. We exchanged birthday cards and Christmas gifts, occasionally met for stilted dinners when I visited Westlake Hills. It wasn't healing, but it was survivable. I'd learned to manage my expectations and protect my emotional energy, while maintaining minimal contact that satisfied my own sense of family obligation. Then March arrived with unseasonably warm weather and the kind of clear blue skies that make Austin feel like paradise. I was reviewing my schedule for Holy Week when my phone buzzed with a text from Mom that would change everything. Annual Easter brunch at the house this Sunday, extended family coming, your presence is expected, wear something appropriate. No pleasantries, no questions about my life or business, just a command disguised as an invitation. The follow-up call from Dad that evening carried the same tone of expectation wrapped in false warmth. This is important for family unity, he explained, his voice carrying that familiar note of barely contained impatience. Your Aunt Patricia and Uncle Jim are flying in from Dallas, plus the Hendersons and the Kellys. We need all hands on deck to make sure everything looks perfect. I stared at the formal invitation that arrived by mail the next day, heavy cardstock with embossed lettering, announcing the Mitchell family annual Easter celebration. The guest list included extended family members I rarely saw, plus several of Dad's business associates and their family. The implied message was clear: this wasn't a family gathering, it was a social event designed to reinforce the Mitchell family brand. "Do you want to go?" Jessica asked, that evening as we shared takeout Vietnamese food on my apartment balcony. She'd been my sounding board through years of family drama, and her expression was carefully neutral as she reviewed the invitation. I mean, what do you actually want from this relationship at this point? That was the question that kept me awake that night. Part of me hoped this might be different, that maybe the passage of time had softened some of the old resentments and rigid expectation. Another part of me remembered every dismissive comment and backhanded compliment, every time my achievements had been minimized or ignored entirely. The decision became more complicated when I realized what Easter Sunday represented in terms of my business schedule. I'd have to reschedule 3 regular clients and turn down overtime pay for holiday cleaning service. In purely financial terms, attending the family brunch would cost me nearly $500 in lost income, money I could definitely use for expanding my equipment inventory. But something deeper than financial calculations was pulling me toward Westlake Hills. Maybe I needed to prove to myself that I could walk into that world without feeling diminished by it. Maybe I wanted to see if the family dynamic had evolved at all, or if I'd grown enough to handle their judgment without taking it personal. I decided to attend, knowing full well that I might regret it. The week leading up to Easter Sunday felt like preparing for battle. I spent hours at Target trying to find an outfit that would satisfy Mom's definition of appropriate while staying within my budget. The pressure was absurd, agonizing over whether a navy blazer looked too casual, or if my only pair of dress shoes were scuffed beyond redemption. I finally settled on a cream-colored blouse with black slacks and a cardigan that could hide the small stain I'd never been able to completely remove from a cleaning mishap. Friday night, I called in a favor from Maria, the woman who'd taught me so much about cleaning when I was younger. She still worked for a few Westlake families and had become something of a mentor to me over the years. "Misha, why are you putting yourself through this?" she asked when I explained my anxiety about the family gathering. "You know how they are. Nothing you do will ever be enough for people who don't want to see you succeed." Her words stung because they carried the weight of truth, but something stubborn inside me refused to accept that reality. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe the success of my business, small though it was, would finally earn me some basic respect. Maybe 5 years of minimal contact had given everyone enough perspective to appreciate what I'd built on my own. Saturday evening, I drove out to Westlake Hills for a reconnaissance mission, needing to see the house again before facing the gauntlet of family judgment. The Mitchell estate looked exactly as I remembered, sprawling and immaculate, with professional landscaping that probably cost more per month than my rent. The circular driveway could accommodate at least 20 cars, and I could see through the floor-to-ceiling windows that the interior had been redecorated since my last visit. Mom had clearly spared no expense for this Easter showcase. Even from the street, I could see fresh floral arrangements and what looked like professional catering equipment being delivered through the side entrance. This wasn't going to be a family brunch, it was going to be a production designed to impress Dad's business contacts and reinforce the Mitchell family's position in Austin's social hierarchy. I sat in my 10-year-old Honda Civic, watching delivery trucks come and go, wondering what exactly I was walking into. The contrast between my modest car and the gleaming Mercedes and BMWs, parked in neighboring driveways, felt symbolic of everything that was wrong with this situation. I didn't belong in this world anymore, if I ever really had. The drive back to my apartment gave me too much time to think, memories surfacing of previous family gatherings, where I'd felt like an unwelcome guest rather than a daughter. High school graduation, where Mom and Dad left early to attend a client dinner. My college graduation from the community college program, which they'd skipped entirely because Emma had a sorority event the same weekend. The Christmas I'd spent alone because my flight was delayed and no one had bothered to wait for me before starting the gift exchange. Jessica found me stress cleaning my already spotless apartment when she got home from her evening shift at the nonprofit where she worked. "You're spiraling," she observed, watching me scrub the baseboards with a toothbrush. "This is either going to be fine, or it's going to be a disaster, but you won't know until you get there. Cleaning the grout in your bathroom isn't going to change the outcome." She was right, of course, but movement felt better than sitting still with my anxious thoughts. I'd built my entire adult life around the principle that hard work and attention to detail could overcome any obstacle, that persistence and quality service would eventually win people over. The idea that these strategies might be useless against family dysfunction was terrifying to contemplate. That night I barely slept, running through possible scenarios and conversations in my head. Would Dad acknowledge my business success at all? Or would he find new ways to diminish? Would Mom introduce me to her friends as my daughter the entrepreneur, or my daughter who cleans houses? Would Emma treat me like an equal adult, or continue the patronizing dynamic we'd fallen into during our 20s? Easter Sunday dawned with the kind of perfect weather that makes Texas spring legendary. Clear skies, gentle breeze, temperatures in the mid-70s that would make the Mitchells' backyard paradise ideal for outdoor entertainment. I showered and dressed with military precision, applying makeup carefully and checking my appearance from every angle. Professional but not flashy, put together but not trying too hard. The drive to Westlake Hills took me through the heart of Austin, past the neighborhoods where I'd built my client base and the small businesses I'd helped maintain. This was my city too, I reminded myself. I'd contributed to this community in meaningful ways, even if my family couldn't see the value in what I'd accomplished. I arrived exactly on time, parking my Honda between a Tesla and a Range Rover, and trying not to feel self-conscious about the comparison. The front door was already open, with guests flowing in and out of the house like it was a hotel lobby rather than a family home. I could hear the sound of laughter and conversation mixed with classical music, the artificial atmosphere of a carefully orchestrated social event. Mom greeted me at the door wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than I made in a month, her smile practiced and welcoming for the benefit of nearby guests. "Sarah, you made it," she said, air kissing near my cheek to avoid disturbing her makeup. Her eyes performed their usual quick assessment of my outfit, and I caught the slight tightening around her mouth that meant she found my appearance adequate, but unremarkable. "The house looks beautiful, Mom," I said, genuinely impressed by the Easter decorations and floral arrangements that transformed the already elegant space into something magazine-worthy. Fresh lilies and white roses filled every surface, and someone had strung delicate white lights throughout the main living areas. "Thank you, darling. The caterers really outdid themselves this year," she replied, steering me toward the main gathering area where extended family and family friends were clustered in small groups. "Let me introduce you to some people. This is my daughter Sarah," she said to a group of women, whose jewelry and handbags screamed serious money. "Not my daughter the successful business owner, or my daughter who built her own company, just my daughter Sarah," with the same tone she might use to introduce a distant acquaintance. The introductions continued in the same vein throughout the first hour. I smiled and made small talk about the weather and the beautiful decorations, while being carefully positioned at the edges of conversations, rather than included as a full participant. When someone asked what I did for work, Mom would jump in with vague responses about service industry work, or helping people with their homes, before quickly redirecting the conversation to safer topics. Dad appeared occasionally to shake hands and exchange pleasantries, but his attention was clearly focused on the business contacts and potential clients scattered throughout the party. I overheard him discussing a new development project with a group of investors, his voice animated in a way I rarely heard when he spoke to me. When he did acknowledge my presence, it was with distracted nods and generic comments about how good it was to see me. Emma arrived fashionably late, making an entrance in a designer Easter dress that looked like it belonged on a magazine cover. Her hair was professionally styled, her makeup flawless, and she moved through the crowd with the confidence of someone who knew she belonged exactly where she was. When she spotted me near the buffet table, her face lit up with what appeared to be genuine pleasure. "Sarah, you look great," she said, giving me a hug that felt more authentic than our usual awkward interactions. "I'm so glad you came. It's been way too long since we've had a chance to catch up properly." For a moment I allowed myself to hope that maybe she'd matured, that perhaps we could find some common ground as adults. We talked about Austin's growth, the changes in our old neighborhoods, and her recent promotion to senior marketing director at Mitchell Real Estate Development. She seemed genuinely interested when I mentioned Green Clean Austin, asking thoughtful questions about my client base and expansion plans. "That's really impressive," she said when I described landing the boutique hotel contract. "I had no idea you'd grown the business so much. You should be proud of what you've built." But then Uncle Jim approached with his wife Patricia, and Emma's demeanor shifted subtly. Suddenly she was the poised executive representing the family business, and I became the sister who needed gentle management rather than genuine conversation. "Sarah's been exploring the service industry," Emma explained to our aunt and uncle, her tone suggesting that my career was some kind of extended experiment rather than a deliberate choice. She's always been good with organizing and cleaning, even when we were kids. The conversation continued around me rather than with me, touching on Emma's latest marketing campaigns and Dad's expansion plans for the coming year. I found myself nodding and smiling while feeling increasingly invisible, like furniture that had been arranged for the party but wasn't expected to contribute to the actual event. The buffet was elaborate, featuring everything from traditional Easter ham to trendy brunch items that reflected Austin's foodie culture. Professional servers circulated with mimosas and coffee, ensuring that no guest ever had to wait for refreshment. The entire production probably cost more than I made in 3 months, all designed to reinforce the Mitchell family's status and success. I was picking at a plate of food I didn't really want when I overheard Mom talking to Mrs. Henderson, one of Dad's longtime business associates. Emma is such a natural at the marketing side of things, Mom was saying. She just has that instinct for what appeals to our target demographic. Sarah, well, she's always marched to her own drummer. Some people are just more practical than ambitious, you know. The comment hit like a slap, not because it was deliberately cruel, but because it was delivered with such casual dismissiveness. In Mom's worldview, my choice to build a service business rather than join the family real estate empire wasn't just different, it was evidence of limited vision and settling for less than my potential. I excused myself to the bathroom, needing a moment to collect myself before facing more small talk and subtle put-downs. The guest bathroom was decorated with fresh flowers and expensive hand towels that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. I stared at my reflection in the ornate mirror, wondering what I was trying to prove by subjecting myself to this treatment. When I returned to the main party area, I noticed that several guests had moved outside to enjoy the perfect weather and admire Mom's prize-winning garden. The backyard was even more impressive than the interior, with professional landscaping that created intimate seating areas around a pool that looked like it belonged at a resort. Emma was holding court near the outdoor kitchen, describing some new marketing initiative to a group of impressed listeners. I found a quiet corner where I could observe without being obviously excluded, watching the social dynamics play out around me. This was Dad's world now, full of people who measured success in square footage and profit margins, who valued connections over character and appearance over authenticity. I'd never fit into this environment, no matter how successful my business became, or how perfectly I dressed for their gatherings. The afternoon sun was getting warmer and some of the older guests were beginning to make their departures with elaborate thanks and promises to get together soon. I was calculating how much longer I needed to stay to fulfill my family obligation when Dad approached with a man I didn't recognize, someone whose expensive suit and confident bearing marked him as another business contact. "Sarah, I'd like you to meet Robert Chen, one of our major investors," Dad said, his tone suggesting this was an honor I should appreciate. "Robert, this is my daughter Sarah. She's been exploring various career options since college." Exploring career options. As if 5 years of building a successful business was some kind of extended internship while I figured out what I really wanted to do with my life. I shook Mr. Chen's hand and made polite conversation about the beautiful weather and the lovely party, while internally cataloging yet another example of how my family viewed my achievements. "What kind of work are you in?" Mr. Chen asked, and I could see Dad tense slightly, waiting to see how I would represent myself, and by extension the family. "I own a cleaning and facilities management company," I said, deciding to be direct rather than apologetic. "We specialize in eco-friendly services for residential and commercial clients." Dad's expression tightened almost imperceptibly, while Mr. Chen nodded politely and made some generic comment about the importance of service industries. The conversation moved quickly to safer topics like real estate market trends and upcoming development projects, effectively excluding me from anything substantive. As the afternoon wore on, I found myself increasingly isolated from the main conversations and activities. Emma was busy networking with Dad's associates, Mom was playing hostess to the family friends, and I was left to make awkward small talk with whoever happened to be nearby. The message was clear: I was welcome to attend as long as I didn't expect to be included as an equal participant. The final insult came when the family gathered for photos on the back terrace, with the beautiful garden and pool as a backdrop. Mom positioned everyone carefully, with Dad and Emma in the center as the successful business leaders, extended family arranged around them, and me placed at the very edge of the frame like an afterthought. "Move a little to the left, Sarah," the photographer directed. "We want to make sure everyone fits in the shot." But as I shifted position, I realized I was being pushed even further toward the margin, barely included in what was clearly meant to be a portrait of the Mitchell family success story. Emma was prominently featured next to Dad, both of them representing the present and future of the family business, while I was relegated to the status of distant relative who happened to be visiting. Standing there in my carefully chosen outfit, smiling for photos that would probably end up in Dad's office or Mom's social media posts, I felt the familiar ache of being perpetually on the outside looking in. This wasn't my family anymore, if it ever really had been. These were people who shared my DNA but couldn't see my worth, who measured love in terms of social status and financial success rather than character or genuine accomplishment. The photo session concluded with everyone praising the beautiful setting and perfect weather, while I stood there feeling more alone than I had in years. Emma caught my eye and offered one of her sympathetic smiles, but even that felt patronizing now, like she was acknowledging my lesser status while being gracious about her own advantage. As guests began to disperse and the party started winding down, I realized that nothing had fundamentally changed. The setting was more elaborate, the guest list more impressive, and the family's wealth more obvious, but the underlying dynamics remained exactly the same. I was still the daughter who didn't quite fit, whose choices were tolerated rather than celebrated, whose presence was accepted but not truly welcome. I was gathering my purse and preparing to make my escape when Mom appeared at my side with a request that would crystallize everything wrong with this relationship. "Sarah, before you leave, could you help me with something? The caterers are cleaning up their equipment, but they missed some spots in the main areas. You're so good at that kind of thing, and I'd hate for the house to look anything less than perfect when the Hendersons stop by later to pick up Patricia's sweater." She was asking me to at Easter brunch, in front of the remaining guests, as if my primary value to the family was my ability to spot dirt that professional caterers had missed and correct their oversights with my superior cleaning skill. "I'm sure the house looks fine, Mom," I said carefully, trying to give her an opportunity to recognize how inappropriate the request was. "Oh, but you have such an eye for detail," she persisted, pressing a microfiber cloth into my hand. "It would just take a few minutes, and you know how important first impressions are. Besides, you're dressed so practically today, it's not like you'd be ruining anything expensive." The cloth felt heavy in my hand, weighted with years of dismissal and disrespect. Around us, the remaining guests were engaged in their own conversations, but I could sense the attention shifting toward our exchange. This was the moment I'd been dreading and expecting in equal measure, the inevitable revelation of how my family truly saw me. Emma noticed what was happening and approached with a concerned expression. "Mom, what are you doing?" "Just asking Sarah to help out a little," Mom replied, her voice taking on a defensive edge. "She's always been good at cleaning, and it's not like she has anywhere important to be." "I'm not your cleaning staff, Mom," I said quietly, handing the cloth back to her. "I'm your daughter and I came here to spend time with family, not to provide free domestic services." "Don't be so dramatic," she replied, but her voice was rising slightly, drawing more attention from nearby guests. "Family helps family. If you can't be bothered to contribute something useful to this gathering, maybe you should reconsider why you're here." The words hung in the air like smoke, visible to everyone within hearing distance. Dad appeared as if summoned by the tension, his expression already annoyed before he fully understood what was happening. "What's the problem now?" he asked, his tone suggesting that I was somehow responsible for creating a scene at his carefully orchestrated social event. "No problem," I said, standing up straighter and finding my voice. "I was just leaving." But Mom wasn't finished. "She's being difficult about helping with some light housework. After everything we've done for her, you'd think she could spare a few minutes to make sure the house looks presentable." "After everything you've done for me?" I repeated, feeling something crack open inside my chest. "Like what exactly? Dismissing my career? Introducing me as if I'm some kind of embarrassment? Asking me to clean your house in front of your guests?" Dad's jaw tightened. "Sarah, you're making a scene. Whatever issues you think you have can be discussed privately later." "The issue I have," I said, no longer caring who was listening, "is being treated like hired help by my own family. I built a successful business from nothing, with no support from any of you. I've earned respect in my field and created something meaningful. But apparently, all you can see is someone to clean up after your parties. Emma stepped forward, looking genuinely uncomfortable for the first time all day. Sarah, let's just calm down and talk about this reasonably. Reasonably? I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. There's nothing reasonable about any of this. I've spent 30 years trying to earn basic respect from people who will never see me as anything more than a disappointment. The conversation was drawing more attention now, other guests pretending to be engaged in their own discussions while obviously listening to the family drama unfolding near the Easter buffet. Mom's face was flushed with embarrassment and anger, while Dad looked like he was considering whether to have me physically removed from the premises. If you can't behave appropriately at a family gathering, Dad said coldly, maybe you should leave. We have important guests here, and this kind of behavior reflects poorly on all of us. You're absolutely right, I said, grabbing my purse and car keys. I should leave. I should have left years ago instead of hoping things would change. I walked toward the front door with as much dignity as I could muster, aware that the beautiful Easter gathering had become a spectacle because of my refusal to accept my assigned role as the family servant. Behind me, I could hear Mom making apologetic comments to the remaining guests about family stress and misunderstandings, already working to minimize the damage to their social reputation. The front door seemed impossibly far away, but I kept walking, my face burning with humiliation and anger. I dressed carefully, driven across town, and spent an entire day pretending that things might be different, only to end up exactly where I'd always been in this family, on the outside, looking in, and apparently not even good enough to be included without condition. I was almost to my car when I heard the sound of an engine that didn't belong in this neighborhood of luxury vehicles and hybrid SUVs. Deep, powerful, and somehow familiar, though I couldn't immediately place where I might have heard it before. I paused with my hand on the Honda's door handle, curiosity momentarily overriding my desperate need to escape. A gleaming black Escalade with tinted windows was pulling into the circular driveway, its presence commanding immediate attention from the remaining Easter guests who had gathered near the windows to observe the arrival. The vehicle was immaculate, clearly expensive, but not ostentatious in the way that screamed new money. This was the kind of understated luxury that spoke of real success rather than desperate status seeking. I stood frozen beside my Honda, curiosity battling with my urgent need to escape this humiliating situation. Through the large windows of the house, I could see the party guests craning their necks to identify the unexpected visitor, while Mom's face displayed the kind of controlled panic that came from having uninvited guests arrive during a carefully orchestrated social event. The Escalade came to a smooth stop directly in front of the main entrance, its engine purring with the kind of quiet power that only came from premium engineering. For a moment, nothing happened. The driver remained seated while the remaining Easter guests watched from inside, their conversations temporarily suspended as they tried to determine whether this was someone important enough to warrant immediate attention or an unwelcome disruption to their refined gathering. Then the driver's door opened, and a man stepped out who immediately commanded the kind of respect that money couldn't buy. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with salt and pepper hair that suggested he was probably in his early 40s. His clothes were expensive but practical, the kind of tailored casual wear that wealthy men chose when they wanted to look approachable without sacrificing quality. Most importantly, there was something about his bearing that suggested he was comfortable in any environment, equally at ease in boardrooms and construction sites. What struck me most was his calm confidence as he surveyed the Mitchell estate, taking in the elaborate Easter decorations and luxury vehicles with the assessment of someone who understood exactly what he was looking at. This wasn't a man who was impressed by displays of wealth because he was already familiar with real success. When his eyes met mine across the driveway, he offered a slight nod of acknowledgement before turning his attention toward the front door. Inside the house, I could see Dad moving toward the entrance with the kind of measured urgency that suggested he was trying to determine whether this visitor represented an opportunity or a problem. Mom appeared beside him, smoothing her dress and checking her reflection in the foyer mirror with practiced efficiency. Emma positioned herself slightly behind them, clearly curious but allowing the parents to take the lead in managing this unexpected development. The man from the Escalade walked directly to the front door with purpose, ignoring the stares from inside the house and carrying himself like someone who was accustomed to making entrances that matter. There was something familiar about him, though I couldn't immediately place where I might have seen him before. Austin's business community was surprisingly small in some ways, and successful entrepreneurs often crossed paths at networking events and industry conferences. Dad opened the door before the visitor could ring the bell, his expression carefully neutral as he tried to assess the situation. "Good afternoon. I'm David Mitchell. Are you here for the Easter gathering?" "Actually, I'm here about a business matter," the man replied, his voice carrying a slight Texas accent that suggested deep roots in the state rather than recent transplant status. "My name is Michael Rodriguez. I understand there might be some confusion about cleaning services that were supposed to be provided today." The words hit me like electricity. Rodriguez. The name was familiar because Rodriguez Cleaning Solutions was legendary in Austin's commercial cleaning industry. I'd heard about the company for years, knew their reputation for handling the largest contracts in the city, from downtown office complexes to luxury hotel chains. What I hadn't known was that the owner looked like this, or that he might have any connection to my family's Easter gathering. Dad's expression shifted from weariness to confusion. "I'm sorry. There must be some mistake. We hired caterers for today's event, and they handled all the cleanup as part of their service." "That's what I was told," Michael Rodriguez replied, his tone remaining pleasant but firm. "But I received a call about an hour ago requesting emergency cleaning services for a family gathering in Westlake Hills." The caller specifically mentioned that the regular cleaning staff had missed several areas, and that professional attention was needed immediately. Mom appeared beside Dad, her social smile firmly in place despite the obvious confusion. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. We didn't call any cleaning services. Our caterers handled everything beautifully." Michael's eyes moved past my parents to focus on me, still standing beside my Honda with my purse clutched in my hands. Something in his expression suggested recognition, though I was certain we'd never met before. Actually, the call came from someone who identified herself as Sarah Mitchell. She requested immediate assistance and said she was willing to pay premium rates for holiday service. The silence that followed was deafening. Inside the house, the remaining guests were clearly listening to every word, their Easter brunch entertainment having taken an unexpected turn toward family drama and business confusion. Dad's face was cycling through several shades of red, while Mom's smile became increasingly strained. "I didn't call anyone," I said, finding my voice despite the surreal nature of the situation. "I don't even have your company's contact information." Michael nodded as if this confirmed something he'd already suspected. "That's interesting because the caller knew quite a bit about your cleaning business. Green Clean Austin, right? Eco-friendly residential and commercial services, specializing in sustainable products and thorough attention to detail." Now I was completely confused. How did this stranger know about my business, and why would someone use my name to request cleaning services for my family's Easter gathering? The whole situation felt like some kind of elaborate prank or misunderstanding that was about to make an already humiliating day even worse. "You own a cleaning business?" Dad asked, his tone suggesting this was news to him despite years of me trying to explain what I did for a living. "She's been running it for several years," Michael answered before I could respond. "Very impressive operation from what I understand." "Sarah, didn't you recently land a contract with the Driscoll Hotel for their boutique event spaces?" I stared at him in amazement. The Driscoll contract was my biggest success to date, something I'd been incredibly proud of but had never mentioned to my family because I knew they wouldn't understand its significance. How did this man know about work I'd done for one of Austin's most prestigious hotels? "How do you know about that?" I asked, taking a step closer to the group gathered around the front door. "Austin's hospitality industry is smaller than people realize," he replied with a slight smile. "Your work at the Driscoll got noticed by the right people. Professional cleaning services that can handle luxury environments without cutting corners are harder to find than you might think." Emma finally spoke up, her voice carrying the kind of curiosity that suggested she was beginning to understand that this situation was more complex than a simple service call mix-up. "Are you saying Sarah's business has been working with major hotels?" "Among other things," Michael confirmed. Green Clean Austin has built quite a reputation for quality and reliability. Sarah's one of the few independent operators in the city who can handle both residential and commercial accounts without compromising standards. The information was clearly news to my family, whose expressions ranged from surprise to skepticism. Mom's practiced smile was beginning to show cracks as she processed the fact that a successful businessman was standing on her doorstep discussing my career with obvious respect and knowledge. "I still don't understand why you're here," Dad said, his business instincts kicking in as he tried to regain control of the conversation. "If no one called for cleaning services, then what's the purpose of this visit?" Michael's expression became more serious as he looked directly at me. "Actually, I was hoping to discuss a business opportunity with Sarah. I've been tracking her work for several months, and Rodriguez Cleaning Solutions is looking to partner with smaller specialized operations that share our commitment to quality service." The words hit me like a physical blow. Rodriguez Cleaning Solutions was one of the largest cleaning companies in Texas, with contracts throughout the Southwest and a reputation that was legendary in the industry. The idea that they might be interested in partnering with my tiny operation was both thrilling and terrifying. "Partnership?" I managed to ask, my voice sounding smaller than I intended. "We're expanding our residential division and looking for operators who understand luxury markets," Michael explained. "Your work with high-end clients and eco-friendly practices aligns perfectly with where we want to go." I was hoping we could discuss the possibility of Green Clean Austin becoming our exclusive residential partner for the Austin market. Dad's expression was shifting from confusion to calculation as he began to understand that this unexpected visitor represented serious business potential. Mom's social instincts were kicking in as she realized that dismissing me in front of someone who clearly valued my work might have been a strategic error. "Perhaps we should continue this conversation inside," Mom suggested, her hostess training overriding her earlier irritation. "I'm sure our guests would love to meet you, Mr. Rodriguez." "Actually, I was hoping to speak with Sarah privately," Michael replied politely but firmly. "This is business and I prefer to handle these discussions directly with the principals involved." Emma stepped forward with the kind of confident smile she used in marketing situations. "I'm Emma Mitchell, Sarah's sister. I handle marketing and business development for our family's real estate company. Maybe I could help facilitate this conversation." "I appreciate the offer," Michael said, maintaining his diplomatic tone. "But this partnership opportunity is specifically with Sarah and Green Clean Austin. I'm not looking for intermediaries or family involvement." The rebuff was gentle but unmistakable, and I could see Emma's face tighten slightly as she realized she was being politely excluded from what was obviously a significant business opportunity. Dad was clearly struggling with the idea that someone wanted to partner with me rather than bringing him into the conversation as the family's business authority. "Sarah, perhaps we should step outside and talk," Michael suggested, gesturing toward his escalator. "I have some preliminary partnership documents I'd like you to review, and I think you might be interested in the terms we're proposing." I looked back at my family, still clustered around the front door, their faces reflecting various degrees of confusion, curiosity, and what might have been regret. The contrast between this moment and the earlier confrontation about cleaning their house felt surreal, like I'd stepped into an alternate reality where my work was valued and my expertise was sought after. "Of course," I said, following Michael toward his vehicle. "I'd be very interested in hearing more about this opportunity." As we walked away from the house, I could hear the murmur of conversation starting up again inside, the remaining Easter guests probably buzzing with curiosity about what they'd just witnessed. Emma's voice carried clearly through the open door as she tried to explain to someone who Michael Rodriguez was, and why his interest in me was significant. Michael opened the passenger door of the Escalade and gestured for me to get in. The interior was as impressive as I'd expected, with leather seats and technology that probably cost more than my annual rent. But what struck me most was how comfortable he seemed in this environment, the way he moved through luxury without being defined by it. "I owe you an explanation," he said, once we were both seated and the doors were closed, providing privacy from the curious eyes still watching from the house windows. "I wasn't completely honest about how I ended up here today," my heart sank. Of course there was some kind of catch or misunderstanding. Things like this didn't happen to people like me, especially not on days when everything else had gone wrong. I've been wanting to approach you about a partnership for weeks, he continued, but finding the right opportunity has been challenging. When I heard through industry contacts that you might be attending a family gathering today, I decided to take a chance and see if I could catch you here. You mean you deliberately came to my parents' house? I asked, trying to process what he was telling me. I know it seems unconventional, he admitted with a slight smile, but sometimes the direct approach works better than formal business meetings. I wanted you to see that Rodriguez Cleaning Solutions is serious about this partnership, serious enough to seek you out rather than waiting for you to come to us. The implications of what he was saying began to sink in. This wasn't some random coincidence or mistaken service call. Michael Rodriguez had deliberately chosen to approach me at my family's Easter gathering, knowing that his presence would elevate my status in their eyes and demonstrate the respect my business had earned in the professional community. How did you even know I would be here? I asked, still struggling to understand the timeline and planning involved. Austin's business community is surprisingly connected, he replied. Your work with the Driscoll led to conversations with other hotel managers, which led to discussions about quality residential services. When I started asking about Green Clean Austin, several people mentioned that you came from a real estate family in Westlake Hills. He pulled a leather portfolio from the console between our seats and handed it to me. These are the preliminary partnership terms I mentioned. Obviously, you'll want to have your attorney review everything, but I think you'll find the financial arrangements quite favorable. I opened the portfolio with trembling hands, scanning documents that outlined revenue sharing, operational support, and expansion opportunities that were far beyond anything I'd imagined for my small business. The numbers alone were staggering, representing the kind of growth that could transform Green Clean Austin from a modest local operation into a significant player in Austin's service industry. This is incredible, I whispered, trying to absorb the scope of what he was proposing. But why me? There are much larger cleaning companies in Austin that would probably jump at this opportunity. Larger doesn't always mean better, Michael replied. We've been watching how you handle client relationships, the quality standards you maintain, and the way you've built your reputation through consistent excellence, rather than aggressive marketing. That's exactly the kind of operation we want to partner with. Through the windshield I could see my family still gathered near the front door, clearly engaged in intense discussion about what was happening in the Escalade. Dad was gesturing emphatically while Mom maintained her social smile, and Emma appeared to be explaining something to the remaining guests who were obviously curious about the unexpected business drama. There's something else, Michael said, following my gaze toward the house. I heard what happened earlier, about your family asking you to clean up after their party. My face burned with embarrassment. You heard that? Sound carries when people are upset, he said gently. I was parking when the conversation got heated, and I couldn't help but overhear. That's actually part of why I decided to approach you today rather than waiting for a more conventional business meeting. I stared at him, trying to understand what he was saying. What do you mean? I mean that anyone who builds a successful business from nothing, who maintains professional standards under pressure, and who has the integrity to walk away from disrespectful treatment, deserves to be recognized for those qualities, he explained. What I witnessed today tells me more about your character than any formal interview could. The partnership documents in my lap represented everything I'd been working toward for years, the kind of opportunity that could establish my business as a major force in Austin's service industry. But more than that, they represented validation from someone who understood the value of what I'd built and saw potential for growth that my own family had never recognized. I'll need some time to review everything, I said, though my instinct was to sign immediately and start planning for the expansion this partnership would make possible. Of course, Michael replied, take all the time you need. But Sarah, I want you to know that Rodriguez Cleaning Solutions doesn't make partnership offers lightly. We see you as a valuable addition to our organization, and we're prepared to support your growth in whatever way makes sense. A knock on the passenger window interrupted our conversation. Dad was standing beside the Escalade, his expression carefully controlled,
but his eyes reflecting the kind of intense curiosity that came from realizing he might have underestimated something important. Michael lowered the window with professional courtesy. "Mr. Mitch, is there something I can help you with? I was hoping to discuss this business opportunity with both of you," Dad said, his voice carrying the practiced authority he used in real estate negotiations. "Perhaps we could continue the conversation inside where it's more comfortable." "Actually, we're finished for today," Michael replied politely but firmly. "Sarah has all the information she needs to make an informed decision about the partnership. This is her business, and her choice." Dad's jaw tightened slightly at being excluded from what he obviously saw as a significant business discussion. "I'm sure Sarah would benefit from experienced advice about major business decisions." "I'm sure she would," Michael agreed. "I recommend she consult with her attorney and accountant before making any commitments. But the decision about whether to partner with Rodriguez Cleaning Solutions is entirely hers to make." The message was clear and unmistakable. This was my opportunity, my business, and my choice. No family input required or desired. Dad stepped back from the vehicle, his expression reflecting frustration at being shut out of a negotiation he clearly wanted to influence. "Sarah, I'll have my assistant call you tomorrow to schedule a follow-up meeting," Michael said, as he prepared to leave. "Take your time reviewing the documents, and don't hesitate to call if you have questions." I climbed out of the Escalade with the portfolio clutched against my chest, feeling like I was carrying the future of my business in a leather folder. The contrast between this moment and the earlier humiliation of being asked to clean up after the Easter party was so dramatic it felt like a dream. Michael Rodriguez had appeared at exactly the right moment, not just with a business opportunity that could transform my career, but with the kind of respect and professional recognition that my family had never offered. He'd seen value in what I'd built, potential in what I could become, and integrity in how I conducted myself under pressure. As the Escalade pulled out of the circular driveway, I stood watching until it disappeared around the corner, holding the partnership documents that represented everything I'd been working toward. Behind me I could hear the murmur of excited conversation from inside the house, the Easter guests obviously buzzing with curiosity about what they'd witnessed. Dad approached me with the kind of measured steps that suggested he was trying to control his frustration at being excluded from the business discussion.
"Sarah, we need to talk about this opportunity. Partnership agreements can be complex, and you'll want experienced guidance before making any commitments." "I'll be consulting with my attorney," I replied, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. "But this is my business decision to make." Mom appeared beside him, her social smile replaced by something that looked almost like genuine interest. "Darling, we had no idea your little cleaning business had grown so much. Mr. Rodriguez seemed very impressed with your work." "My little cleaning business," I repeated, testing the words. "Is that how you've been describing Green Clean Austin to people?" Emma joined the group, her marketing instincts clearly engaged as she processed the potential significance of what had just happened. "Sarah, Rodriguez Cleaning Solutions, is a major player in the Texas market. If they're offering you a partnership, that's huge news." "Yes, it is," I agreed, tucking the portfolio under my arm. "It's the kind of opportunity that comes from years of building a reputation for quality and reliability." The late afternoon sun was casting long shadows across the perfectly manicured lawn, and most of the Easter guests had departed, leaving only family members and a few close friends to witness the aftermath of what would undoubtedly become family legend. The day that had started with me being asked to clean up after the party had ended with a major business opportunity that none of them had seen coming. "We should celebrate," Mom suggested, her hostess instincts kicking in as she tried to recalibrate the family dynamic. "This calls for champagne." "Actually, I think I'll head home," I said, surprising myself with the decision. "I have a lot to think about, and I want to review these documents carefully." Dad looked like he wanted to argue, to insist on immediate family discussion about the partnership opportunity and how it might benefit everyone involved. But something in my expression must have communicated that this moment belonged to me alone, that for once in my life I was holding cards that didn't need to be shared or explained or justified to anyone else. "Of course," he said finally, "but Sarah, We should discuss this soon. Partnership opportunities like this have implications for the whole family. I looked at him for a long moment, then at Mom and Emma, seeing them clearly for perhaps the first time in years. They were good people in their own way, trapped in their own definitions of success and value, unable to see beyond their narrow vision of what mattered. But their limitations didn't have to define my potential anymore. This partnership opportunity is mine, I said quietly, but firmly. I earned it through my own work, my own reputation, and my own professional relationships. It doesn't have implications for the family because it's not a family business decision. The words hung in the air between us, marking a fundamental shift in our relationship that had been building for years. I was no longer the daughter seeking approval or trying to fit into their version of success. I was an independent businesswoman with my own opportunities and my own choices to make. Walking toward my Honda, I felt lighter than I had in months, despite carrying the weight of documents that could change everything about my professional future. The partnership with Rodriguez Cleaning Solutions represented more than financial opportunity. It represented recognition from someone who understood the value of what I'd built and saw potential for growth that my own family had missed entirely. The drive back to East Austin gave me time to process everything that had happened, from the morning's anxiety about attending the Easter gathering, to the afternoon's humiliation of being asked to clean, to the evening's incredible validation from Michael Rodriguez. The emotional whiplash was exhausting, but underneath the confusion was a growing sense of clarity about what I wanted and who I was becoming. My apartment had never looked more welcoming than it did that evening, a sanctuary of my own creation, where I could think clearly without the pressure of family expectations or social performance. I spread the partnership documents across my kitchen table, reading through terms and conditions that outlined a future I'd never dared to imagine for Green Clean Austin. The financial projections alone were staggering, showing potential revenue growth that could transform my modest operation into a significant regional player within 2 years. But more importantly, the partnership offered operational support, professional development, and access to commercial accounts that would establish my business as a legitimate force in Austin's competitive service industry. Jessica found me there hours later, still poring over legal language and financial forecasts, my Easter outfit replaced by comfortable clothes and my hair pulled back in the ponytail I wore for serious thinking. She took one look at the documents spread across the table and whistled low. "Holy shit, Sarah. Is this what I think it is?" "Rodriguez Cleaning Solutions wants to partner with Green Clean Austin," I said, the words still feeling surreal. "They're offering revenue sharing, operational support and exclusive contracts that could triple our business within 18 months. "That's incredible," she said, settling into the chair across from me. "But wait, how did this happen? Last I heard you were dreading Easter dinner with the family from hell." I told her the whole story, from the morning's anxiety through the afternoon's humiliation, to Michael Rodriguez's unexpected appearance and the partnership offer that had blindsided everyone, including me. Jessica listened with growing amazement, occasionally interrupting with questions or exclamations of disbelief. "So let me get this straight," she said, when I finished. "Your family spent the day treating you like domestic help, then this major business owner shows up specifically to offer you a partnership that could make you incredibly successful." "That's pretty much what happened," I confirmed, still struggling to believe it myself. "That's not coincidence," Jessica said firmly. "That's karma, or justice, or maybe just the universe finally giving you what you've earned." The partnership documents represented everything I'd been working toward, but they also represented a choice about what kind of person I wanted to become, and what kind of relationships I was willing to accept. The contrast between my family's treatment and Michael Rodriguez's respect couldn't have been more stark, showing me exactly how much my perspective on my own worth had been distorted by years of subtle dismissal and overt criticism. That night, I called my attorney and scheduled a meeting for the following week to review the partnership terms. I also called my accountant to discuss the financial implications and tax considerations of the kind of rapid business growth the partnership would enable. These were the actions of a serious businesswoman making informed decisions about her professional future, not the desperate daughter seeking family approval. For the first time in years, I went to sleep excited about tomorrow rather than anxious about family expectations or worried about proving my worth to people who would never be satisfied with my choices. The partnership with Rodriguez Cleaning Solutions might or might not work out, but the opportunity itself had already given me something invaluable, proof that my work had value in the broader professional community, regardless of what my family thought about my career choices. The last thing I remembered before falling asleep was Michael Rodriguez's words about seeing value in what I'd built and potential in what I could become. Those words carried more weight than any family approval ever could, because they came from someone who understood my industry and recognized excellence when he saw it. Tomorrow would bring decisions about the partnership, but tonight I could rest in the knowledge that I'd finally found someone who saw me clearly and liked what they saw. The partnership with Rodriguez Cleaning Solutions transformed everything about my professional life within 6 months, but the changes went far deeper than revenue numbers or client contracts. Working alongside Michael's team taught me that my instincts about quality and customer service weren't just personal preferences. They were legitimate business strategies that separated successful companies from those that merely survived. The first joint project we tackled together was a complete facilities overhaul for a new luxury resort on Lake Travis, a contract worth more than I'd made in my previous 3 years combined. Michael insisted on partnering with me as an equal rather than simply subcontracting work through Rodriguez Cleaning Solutions, which meant my name appeared on all the project documentation and client communication. Standing in the resort's marble lobby during our final walkthrough wearing a tailored business suit that I'd bought specifically for client meetings, I felt the profound satisfaction of work that mattered. The project had required coordinating 12 different specialists, managing timelines that affected the resort's opening schedule, and maintaining quality standards that would determine whether guests had exceptional experiences or merely adequate ones. "This is what excellence looks like," Michael said as we reviewed the spotless granite surfaces and perfectly organized spa facilities. "You've set a new standard for what luxury hospitality cleaning can accomplish." The resort manager, a sophisticated woman who managed properties throughout Texas, shook my hand with genuine respect. "Sarah, we'll definitely be using Green Clean Austin for all our properties. This level of attention to detail is exactly what our guests expect." Walking out of that meeting with a multi-property contract worth nearly $2 million annually, I understood that I'd crossed some invisible threshold from small business owner to legitimate industry player. The transformation hadn't happened overnight, but the partnership had accelerated my growth in ways I could never have achieved alone. Michael had become more than a business partner during those months of intense collaboration. He was someone who genuinely enjoyed my company, who sought my opinion on industry trends, and who trusted my judgment about operational decisions that affected both our company. Our professional relationship had evolved into something deeper, built on mutual respect and shared vision for what ethical business practices could accomplish. The romantic aspect developed so gradually that I barely noticed it happening. Late planning sessions over takeout Chinese food, celebratory dinners after successful project completions, weekend strategy meetings that turned into long conversations about life goals and personal value. Michael never presumed or pushed, never made me feel like romance was expected in exchange for business opportunities. When he finally asked me to dinner that had nothing to do with work, it felt natural rather than complicated. We'd already established trust and compatibility in high-pressure situations, already proven that we could communicate honestly about difficult topics, already demonstrated that we brought out the best in each other's professional capability. "I've been wanting to ask you something that has nothing to do with cleaning contracts or revenue projections," he said one evening as we finished reviewing quarterly reports in his downtown office. The autumn light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows made Austin's skyline glow like something from a postcard. "What's that?" I asked, though something in his tone suggested I already knew where this conversation was heading. "Would you have dinner with me this weekend? Somewhere nice." No business discussion allowed, just two people who enjoy each other's company. The answer was immediate and certain. "I'd like that very much." Our first official date took place at a small French restaurant in South Austin, the kind of intimate place where conversation was valued over impressive presentations. Michael arrived in jeans and a button-down shirt, looking relaxed in a way I rarely saw during business hours. He'd reserved a corner table where we could talk without interruption, and he'd remembered my preference for wine over cocktails. "Tell me something about yourself that has nothing to do with cleaning or business," he said once we'd ordered, leaning back in his chair with genuine curiosity. I found myself talking about books I'd loved as a child, places I wanted to travel, the satisfaction of gardening and the small plot behind my apartment building. Michael listened with the same focused attention he brought to client meetings, asking follow-up questions that showed he was genuinely interested in understanding who I was beyond my professional accomplishment. When I turned the questions back to him, I learned about his childhood in San Antonio, his father's construction business that had taught him the value of honest work, his mother's insistence that success meant helping other people achieve their goals rather than just accumulating wealth. He talked about building Rodriguez Cleaning Solutions as a way to create good jobs for people who took pride in their work, about the satisfaction of seeing employees buy homes and send their children to college because of opportunities his company provided. "Business success that doesn't improve other people's lives feels hollow to me," he said over dessert. "That's why the partnership with you made sense immediately. You understand that cleaning isn't just about removing dirt, it's about creating environments where people can live and work at their best." The relationship developed with the same careful attention to detail that characterized both our professional approach. Michael never made assumptions about what I wanted or needed, never tried to change my independent lifestyle to accommodate his preferences. When he finally met Jessica and my other friends, he fit seamlessly into conversations without trying to dominate or impress anyone. More importantly, he understood my complicated relationship with my family without trying to fix it or minimize my experiences. When I described the Easter gathering disaster, he listened without offering solutions or suggesting that I should be more forgiving. He accepted that some relationships were inherently limited, and that protecting my emotional well-being was more important than maintaining family harmony at any cost. The integration of our personal and professional lives happened gradually, with boundaries that protected both relationships from the pressures that often destroyed business partnerships or romantic connection. We maintained separate companies while collaborating on major projects, kept individual social circles while introducing each other to friends and colleagues, preserved personal independence while building shared experiences and goals. Michael's wealth became apparent slowly rather than through dramatic revelations. His downtown condo was elegant but not ostentatious, his car expensive but practical, his clothes well-made but understated. The true scope of his success became clear only when I started understanding the full reach of Rodriguez Cleaning Solutions, which handled facilities management for major corporations throughout the Southwest and employed nearly 3,000 people across 6 states. "Does it bother you?" he asked one evening when I'd been quiet after learning about a particularly large contract his company had just secured. We were cooking dinner in his kitchen, a normal domestic scene that felt surprisingly comfortable despite the disparity in our financial situations. "The money." "No," I replied honestly. "It's more about wondering whether I'm bringing enough to this relationship to make it balanced." His answer was immediate and certain. "You bring intelligence, integrity, humor, and the kind of work ethic that can't be taught or bought. You've built something meaningful from nothing, and you've done it without compromising your values or stepping on other people. That's rarer and more valuable than money." After 18 months of partnership and 6 months of dating, Michael proposed during a perfectly ordinary Tuesday evening while we were reviewing expansion plans for Green Clean Austin at my kitchen table. No dramatic gestures or public declarations, just a quiet moment between two people who'd already proven they could build something lasting together. "I don't want to spend another day wondering what our life could look like if we made it official," he said, producing a ring that balanced elegance with practicality in exactly the way I would have chosen for myself. "Will you marry me, Sarah?" The answer was easy because the relationship had always felt right, from the first business meeting through every challenge and success we'd navigated together. "Yes. Absolutely yes." We planned a small wedding at a historic venue in Austin's Hill Country, focusing on celebration rather than spectacle. My parents and Emma attended, maintaining appropriate expressions throughout the ceremony, while clearly processing the significance of what they were witnessing. The guest list included Jessica and my chosen family of friends, Michael's relatives from San Antonio,
and key employees from both our companies who had become genuine friends over the years. Mom whispered to one of her friends that my dress was surprisingly sophisticated, as if she'd expected me to walk down the aisle in work clothes. Dad shook Michael's hand with newfound respect after fully understanding the scope of Rodriguez Cleaning Solutions and what our partnership meant for both companies. Emma cornered me during the reception to express amazement at how much my life had changed since the disastrous Easter gathering. "I had no idea you'd built something so substantial," she admitted with what seemed like genuine regret. "I think we all underestimated what you were accomplishing. The work was always substantial," I replied without bitterness. "You just weren't paying attention." Our honeymoon in Costa Rica combined Michael's love of adventure travel with my interest in sustainable tourism, exploring eco-lodges and conservation projects that demonstrated how luxury and environmental responsibility could coexist. We spent 2 weeks hiking through cloud forests, learning about organic farming techniques, and discussing how our companies might incorporate more environmentally conscious practices. Moving into our shared home marked another milestone in the evolution of both our relationship and my business. Michael had purchased a renovated farmhouse on 10 acres outside Austin, a property that offered privacy and space while remaining accessible to both our offices. The house needed work, which gave us a project to tackle together while establishing our domestic partnership. I maintained Green Clean Austin's independence, while expanding operations to handle the residential contracts that came through our partnership with Rodriguez Cleaning Solutions. The company that had started with me and a bucket of eco-friendly supplies now employed 15 full-time staff members and handled cleaning for some of Austin's most exclusive properties. More importantly, I'd learned to value my own expertise and charge accordingly for services that improved people's lives in meaningful ways. The residential clients who hired Green Clean Austin weren't just paying for clean houses, they were investing in environments that supported their family's health, productivity, and well-being. The relationship with my family evolved slowly, with boundaries that protected my emotional well-being while allowing for limited connection. Holiday gatherings became possible again, though I no longer felt obligated to attend every function or tolerate disrespectful treatment in the name of family loyalty. When Dad called 6 months after the wedding to discuss potential business synergies between Mitchell Real Estate Development and our cleaning companies, I listened politely but declined to mix family relationships with professional partnerships. "I appreciate the interest," I told him, "but Michael and I prefer to keep our business relationships separate from family dynamics." The disappointment in his voice was obvious, but he accepted the boundary without argument. Perhaps he'd finally understood that I was no longer the daughter seeking approval, but an independent businesswoman who made decisions based on strategic value rather than family obligation. Emma and I developed a cautious friendship based on mutual respect rather than childhood hierarchy. She'd established herself as a capable marketing director at Mitchell Real Estate Development, while I'd proven that success didn't require following the family template. We could appreciate each other's achievements without competition or comparison. Mom's transformation was the most gradual, moving from dismissive comments about my career to genuine interest in what I'd accomplished. When she needed deep cleaning services for a charity event at their house, she hired Green Clean Austin and paid standard rates rather than expecting family discounts or free labor. "Your people did exceptional work," she told me afterward, her tone carrying surprise that suggested she'd finally understood the difference between professional cleaning services and casual household maintenance. I had no idea the level of skill and attention required for this kind of work. The most profound changes, however, happened within my own understanding of success and self-worth. The partnership with Michael, both professional and personal, had shown me what relationships looked like when they were built on mutual respect and genuine appreciation. I no longer measured my value by other people's approval or defined my achievements by their recognition. Green Clean Austin continued growing, expanding into commercial properties and specialty services that leveraged our reputation for quality and reliability. The company that had started as a way to pay rent had become a regional leader in sustainable cleaning practices, with contracts throughout Central Texas and inquiries from potential clients in other markets. During our second year of marriage, Michael and I established a foundation focused on job training and small business development in Austin's service industry. We provided grants and mentorship for people starting cleaning companies, landscaping businesses, and other service operations that often struggled to access traditional business funding. Success creates obligations, Michael explained when we were designing the foundation's mission statement. If we can use our resources to help other people build sustainable businesses, we're contributing something meaningful to the community. The foundation work became deeply fulfilling, allowing me to share the lessons I'd learned about building a business from nothing while avoiding the mistakes that could destroy promising companies. Working with young entrepreneurs reminded me how far I'd traveled from the anxious woman who'd dreaded family gatherings and questioned her own worth. Jessica remained my closest friend and unofficial business advisor, celebrating each milestone with the enthusiasm of someone who'd witnessed the entire journey from struggling college student to successful entrepreneur. Her own nonprofit work had flourished, and we often collaborated on projects that addressed social issues through business innovation. "Remember when you thought your family's approval was the most important thing in the world?" she asked one evening as we shared wine on the deck of the farmhouse, watching sunset paint the Texas sky in shades of gold and purple. "That feels like a different lifetime," I replied, though the memories were still clear. I spent so much energy trying to earn something that was never available, while ignoring the respect I was earning from people who actually mattered. 5 years after the disastrous Easter gathering, I understood that true wealth wasn't measured in luxury cars or prestigious addresses, but in relationships that allowed authentic growth and work that created genuine value. The cleaning business that my family had dismissed as beneath their social status had become the foundation for a life that exceeded my wildest expectations. Michael and I talked occasionally about having children, planning how we might balance family life with the demands of growing businesses and community involvement. Whatever we decided, I knew our children would grow up understanding that success came in many forms, that all honest work deserved respect, and that self-worth couldn't be earned through other people's approval. The partnership that had begun with Michael's unexpected appearance at my family's Easter gathering had evolved into something that transformed both our companies and our lives. Rodriguez Cleaning Solutions and Green Clean Austin continued operating as separate entities while collaborating on projects that neither company could have handled alone. More importantly, we'd proven that business relationships built on genuine respect and shared values could create opportunities that benefited everyone involved, from employees and clients to the broader community that supported our success. The woman who had stood in her parents' driveway 5 years earlier, humiliated and dismissed, had been replaced by someone who understood her own worth and refused to accept treatment that diminished her dignity. The transformation hadn't happened overnight, but each decision to prioritize self-respect over family approval had contributed to building a life that felt authentic and sustainable. When former clients recommended Green Clean Austin to their friends, when employees spoke proudly about their work with our company, when community organizations sought our partnership for special projects, I felt the deep satisfaction that came from creating something meaningful rather than just profitable. The Easter Sunday that had started with anxiety about family judgment and ended with a transformative business opportunity had taught me that sometimes the most important validation comes from unexpected sources, that professional respect can be more valuable than personal approval, and that walking away from toxic dynamics creates space for relationships that actually nourish growth. Michael often said that the best partnerships, whether business or personal, made both parties stronger and more capable than they could be alone. Our marriage exemplified that principle, combining his resources and experience with my attention to detail and customer focus to create opportunities that surprised us both. Looking back, I could see how each challenge had contributed to building the resilience and confidence that made our current success possible. The family rejection that had once felt devastating had forced me to develop independence and self-reliance. The financial struggles of building a business from nothing had taught me to value every client and opportunity. The years of proving myself in a competitive industry had created the reputation that attracted Michael's partnership offer. Standing in our farmhouse kitchen on a quiet Sunday morning, reviewing the week's schedule while Michael made coffee and discussed plans for expanding our foundation's reach, I felt the profound contentment that came from building a life based on authentic values, rather than external expectations. The Easter lilies blooming in our garden reminded me of that transformative holiday 5 years earlier, when humiliation had given way to vindication in the space of a single afternoon. But the real transformation hadn't happened in that dramatic moment when Michael appeared with his partnership offer. It had happened gradually through hundreds of small decisions to prioritize my own growth over other people's comfort, to value my work regardless of who else appreciated it, and to build relationships with people who saw my worth clearly.
The phone calls from my parents had become more frequent lately, usually centered around requests for business advice or invitations to family functions that acknowledged my success rather than ignoring it. I responded when I felt like it and declined when I didn't, maintaining the boundaries that protected my emotional well-being while allowing for limited connection. Emma had started referring potential residential clients to Green Clean Austin, finally understanding that my business provided services her real estate clients genuinely needed and valued. The professional referrals felt more meaningful than personal apologies, demonstrating respect through actions rather than words. But the most important relationships in my life were the ones I'd chosen and cultivated. From Michael and Jessica to the employees who'd become extended family, the clients who trusted us with their most important spaces, and the community partners who shared our commitment to creating opportunities for everyone to succeed. The journey from overlooked daughter to successful entrepreneur had required letting go of the desperate need for family approval that had shaped my early adult years. In releasing that need, I discovered that the validation I'd been seeking was already present in the work itself, in the clients who trusted my expertise, in the employees who took pride in our company's reputation, and in the industry recognition that came from consistent excellence. Green Clean Austin had become more than a business. It was proof that sustainable success could be built on integrity, quality, and genuine care for people's well-being rather than aggressive competition or corner cutting. The company culture we'd created reflected the values Michael and I shared, treating every employee as a professional contributor rather than disposable labor. The foundation work had become equally fulfilling, providing resources and mentorship for aspiring entrepreneurs who faced the same challenges I'd encountered when starting out. Helping other people build sustainable businesses felt like closing a circle, using the success I'd achieved to create opportunities for the next generation of service industry leaders. When reporters occasionally called for interviews about women in business or sustainable cleaning practices, I tried to emphasize that success wasn't about overcoming family rejection or proving critics wrong, but about finding work that created genuine value and building relationships that supported authentic growth. The little girl who'd spun in her father's office chair, dreaming of being part of something special, had finally created exactly that. Not through joining the family business or earning their belated approval, but by building something meaningful from her own vision and value. Michael and I often talked about the unexpected ways our partnership had enriched both our personal and professional lives, creating opportunities neither of us could have imagined when he first appeared at my family's Easter gathering with his offer to discuss business collaboration. The Escalade pulling into the Mitchell driveway that afternoon had represented more than a business opportunity. It had marked the beginning of a life built on mutual respect, shared goals, and the understanding that true partnership meant making each other stronger rather than smaller. 5 years later, standing in the garden we'd planted together, surrounded by the evidence of growth that comes from nurturing authentic relationships and meaningful work, I understood that the most profound transformations happen not through dramatic gestures, but through consistent choices to honor our own worth and surround ourselves with people who see our potential clearly. The woman who'd been asked to clean up after her family's Easter party had become someone who built companies, employed dozens of people, contributed to her community's growth, and created a marriage based on equality and mutual respect. The transformation was complete not because external circumstances had changed, but because I'd finally learned to see myself through the eyes of people who valued what I brought to the world. 10 years later, I stood in the gleaming lobby of the newest Rodriguez Mitchell Cleaning Solutions headquarters, watching our employees prepare for the annual company celebration. The building itself was a testament to how far we'd come, a sustainable facility that showcased the environmental principles both our companies had embraced from the beginning. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Austin's skyline, now dotted with buildings that our teams maintained daily. The name change had happened 3 years earlier when Michael and I decided to fully merge our operations, creating the largest eco-friendly cleaning company in the Southwest. Rodriguez Mitchell Cleaning Solutions now employed over 5,000 people across 12 states, with annual revenues exceeding $400 million. But the numbers, impressive as they were, told only part of the story. What mattered more was the culture we'd built, the way our employees spoke about their work with genuine pride, the testimonials from clients who trusted us with their most important spaces, and the community impact we'd achieved through our foundation program. We'd proven that a service business could be both profitable and principled, creating value for everyone involved rather than just enriching the owner. Maria, my first mentor in the cleaning industry, now served as our Director of Training Excellence, developing programs that taught new employees the same attention to detail and customer service principles she'd shared with me decades earlier. At 73 years old, she moved through the headquarters with the energy of someone half her age, beloved by staff members who sought her advice on everything from cleaning techniques to career development. "Misha, look what you built," she said, joining me at the lobby windows as the sun set over Austin. "That little girl who used to help me clean houses is now running an empire." "We built it together," I corrected, meaning it completely. "Everything I learned about quality and pride in work came from watching you." Jessica had become our Director of Community Relations, channeling her nonprofit experience into programs that provided job training and small business loans for aspiring entrepreneurs. Her office was always busy with people seeking guidance on starting their own service companies, many of whom had been inspired by our success story. The foundation we'd established had grown into a significant force for economic development in Austin and beyond, providing over $30 million in grants and loans to small business owners who might otherwise have struggled to access traditional funding. More importantly, we'd created a network of mentors and advisors who helped new entrepreneurs avoid the mistakes that could destroy promising companies. Michael remained the steady partner who'd first seen potential in my small operation, but our relationship had evolved far beyond the initial business collaboration. He'd become the father of our twin daughters, Emma Rose and Maria Grace, now 7 years old and already showing signs of the independence and determination that had shaped both our lives. Emma Rose, named after my sister in a gesture of reconciliation that had surprised everyone, possessed her father's calm confidence and analytical mind. She could spend hours organizing her toys with the same methodical approach Michael brought to business planning. Maria Grace, named after my mentor, had inherited my eye for detail and genuine care for other people's comfort, often rearranging furniture to make spaces more welcoming for visitors. Both girls understood that their parents worked in the cleaning industry, but they saw it as we'd learned to see it: essential work that improved people's lives and created opportunities for thousands of families. When they visited our facilities, employees treated them like beloved nieces, sharing stories about their own children and families that our company's success had helped support. The relationship with my birth family had found its equilibrium over the years, settling into patterns that acknowledged our fundamental differences while maintaining basic respect and connection. My parents had gradually come to understand that my career choice hadn't been a rejection of their values, but a different path to similar goals of financial security and community contribution. Dad now served on the advisory board of our foundation, bringing his real estate expertise to help small business owners find suitable commercial property. His transformation from someone who'd dismissed my work to someone who actively supported it had been gradual but genuine, built on evidence rather than apology. Mom had become one of our most reliable sources of referrals, recommending Rodriguez Mitchell Cleaning Solutions to her social circle with the same enthusiasm she'd once reserved for Emma's achievement. Her friends' homes were now maintained by our residential division, and she spoke about our company's success with obvious pride. Emma, my sister, had eventually left Mitchell Real Estate Development to start her own marketing consultancy, specializing in helping service industry companies develop their brand identity and customer outreach strategy. She'd been inspired, she told me, by watching how Michael and I had built our reputation through consistent excellence rather than flashy advertising. Our professional relationship had evolved into genuine friendship, with Emma occasionally handling marketing projects for our company while maintaining her independence. She'd married a teacher and had 2 children of her own, building a life that prioritized family balance over unlimited growth. The Easter gatherings at my parents' house had become genuinely enjoyable events where my success was celebrated rather than tolerated, where my daughters were cherished as beloved granddaughters, and where my expertise was sought on everything from household organization to small business advice. The transformation felt complete when Mom asked me to help plan the cleaning logistics for my cousin's wedding reception, treating me as the family expert rather than free labor. But the most profound changes had occurred in my own understanding of success and family. The desperate need for parental approval that had shaped my early adult years had been replaced by the quiet confidence that came from building something meaningful with people who shared my values. Michael and I had created a partnership that made us both stronger, parents who were raising children to understand that all honest work deserved respect, and employers who treated our staff as valued professionals rather than disposable labor. The company culture we'd established reflected our belief that business success should create opportunities for everyone involved, not just enrich the owner. The annual company celebration that evening brought together employees from across our service area, their families, and community partners who'd collaborated with us on various projects. The hotel ballroom was filled with people whose lives had been positively impacted by our company's growth, from single mothers who'd built careers with us, to recent immigrants who'd found stable employment and pathways to citizenship. During my remarks to the assembled group, I reflected on the journey that had brought us to this moment, from a small residential cleaning service to a regional industry leader. But I focused less on financial metrics and more on the relationships we'd built, the opportunities we'd created, and the proof that ethical business practices could compete successfully with companies that prioritized profit over people. Success isn't measured by the size of your bank account or the impression you make at social gatherings, I told the audience, many of whom nodded in recognition of struggles they'd faced in their own career. It's measured by the positive impact you have on other people's lives, the integrity you maintain under pressure, and the legacy you create for the next generation. The applause was warm and sustained, coming from people who understood that their own success was intertwined with our company's values and vision. These were individuals who took pride in their work, who spoke enthusiastically about our company to friends and family, and who had built careers rather than just found jobs. After the formal program ended, I found myself in conversations with employees who'd been with us for years, sharing stories about their children's achievements, their home purchases, their educational goals that our tuition assistance program had helped support. These relationships represented the real return on investment that made all the business challenges worthwhile. Maria approached me near the end of the evening, her eyes bright with the satisfaction of work well done. "You know what I'm most proud of?" she asked, gesturing toward the crowded ballroom where our employees were celebrating with their families. "What's that?" I replied, though I suspected I knew what she was going to say. "All these people have good jobs because you refused to let anyone convince you that cleaning work wasn't worthy of respect. You proved that service can be a profession, not just something people do while they're waiting for something better." Her words captured something essential about the journey from that humiliating Easter Sunday to this moment of genuine celebration. The transformation hadn't just been personal, it had created ripple effects that improved hundreds of lives and challenged assumptions about the value of service work. The drive home with Michael and the girls gave us time to process the evening's events and discuss the expansion plans we'd been considering. Rodriguez Mitchell Cleaning Solutions had received inquiries from potential clients in new markets, opportunities that would require careful planning and significant investment, but could establish us as a national leader in sustainable cleaning services. "What do you think?" Michael asked as we discussed the possibilities. "Are you ready to take on that kind of growth?" "I think we're ready," I replied, watching Austin's lights twinkle in the distance, "but only if we can maintain the culture and values that got us here. Growth for its own sake isn't worth compromising what we've built." Emma, Rose, and Maria Grace had fallen asleep in their car seats, exhausted from the evening's excitement, but happy to have been included in the celebration. They'd spent the evening being passed between employees who'd known them since birth, collecting business cards from people who promised to teach them various skills when they were older. At home, after the girls were settled in their beds and Michael was reviewing emails in his study, I found myself in the garden we'd expanded over the year. The Easter lilies that bloomed each spring had multiplied, creating a beautiful display that reminded me annually of the transformation that had begun on that difficult holiday a decade earlier. The woman who'd stood in her parents' driveway humiliated and dismissed had evolved into someone who employed thousands of people, influenced industry standards, and raised children who understood that success came in many forms.
The journey had required letting go of the need for external validation while building something meaningful from authentic values and genuine relationship. The partnership with Michael had become the foundation for everything else we'd accomplished, proving that business relationships built on mutual respect and shared vision could create opportunities that benefited entire communities. Our marriage had produced not just personal happiness, but professional synergy that made both our companies stronger and more innovative. The foundation work had become equally fulfilling, providing resources and mentorship for entrepreneurs who faced the same challenges I'd encountered when starting out. Watching small business owners achieve success with our support felt like completing a circle, using the advantages we'd gained to create opportunities for others. Standing in the garden under a sky full of stars, I understood that the most important transformations hadn't been the external changes in wealth or status, but the internal shifts in how I valued my own work and defined my own work. The cleaning business that had once been dismissed as beneath social consideration had become the foundation for a life that exceeded my wildest dreams. The phone in my pocket buzzed with a text from Emma, my sister, sharing photos from her own family's evening activity. Her children were building a fort in their living room, the kind of imaginative play that brought joy without requiring expensive toys or elaborate settings. The message included a note, thanking me for inspiring her to prioritize family time over endless business expansion. Jessica had sent a similar message earlier, celebrating the success of our latest foundation grant recipient, a single mother who'd used our small business loan to start a house-sitting service that now employed 6 people. These were the victories that mattered most, the proof that our success had created positive ripples that extended far beyond our own family and company. The journey from overlooked daughter to successful entrepreneur had taught me that true wealth wasn't measured in luxury possessions or social status, but in relationships that supported authentic growth and work that created genuine value. The cleaning services that my family had once considered beneath their notice had become the foundation for a business empire that employed thousands and influenced an entire industry. More importantly, the experience had taught me that self-worth couldn't be earned through other people's approval, that professional respect was more valuable than personal validation from people who couldn't see clearly, and that walking away from toxic dynamics created space for relationships that actually nourished growth and creativity. Michael found me in the garden an hour later, carrying 2 cups of herbal tea and settling beside me on the bench we'd installed for quiet conversation. The comfortable silence between us spoke to the deep partnership we'd built, the way we could share thoughts without words and support each other's dreams without competition. "Any regrets?" he asked, a question that had become a tradition during our reflective moment. "Only that it took me so long to understand my own worth," I replied honestly, "but maybe that struggle was necessary to appreciate what we have now." "Everything happens in its own time," Michael said, taking my hand in his. "The important thing is that you never gave up on building something meaningful, even when it would have been easier to settle for other people's limited vision of what you could accomplish." The truth of his words settled over me like a comfortable blanket. The journey from that humiliating Easter Sunday to this moment of profound contentment had required persistence, courage, and the willingness to value my own vision over other people's opinion. Every challenge had contributed to building the resilience and confidence that made our current success possible. Looking toward the house where our daughters slept safely, surrounded by the evidence of what could be built through honest work and authentic relationships, I felt the deep satisfaction that came from living according to principles rather than external expectations. The little girl who dreamed of being part of something special had finally created exactly that, not through joining someone else's vision but by building her own. The Easter lilies would bloom again next spring, reminding me of the transformation that had begun with humiliation and rejection but had evolved into vindication and success beyond anything I'd originally imagined. The cycle of growth and renewal they represented had become a metaphor for the ongoing journey of building a life that honored both personal values and professional excellence. 10 years after being asked to clean up after my family's Easter party, I'd created a company that set industry standards for quality and environmental responsibility, a marriage built on equality and mutual respect, and a family that understood the value of all honest work. The transformation was complete not because external circumstances had changed, but because I'd finally learned to see myself through the eyes of people who recognized my true worth. The woman who'd stood alone in that driveway, tears streaming down her face, had become someone who employed thousands, influenced industry practices, contributed to community development, and raised children who would never doubt their own value regardless of what others thought. The journey had been long and sometimes painful, but every step had been necessary to reach this place of genuine contentment and purposeful impact. As Michael and I finished our tea and prepared to go inside, I took one last look at the garden we'd planted together, the house we'd made into a home, and the life we'd built from mutual respect and shared dreams. The most profound success wasn't the wealth we'd accumulated or the recognition we'd earned, but the relationships we'd nurtured and the positive impact we'd created for others. The Easter Sunday that had begun with anxiety and ended with opportunity had taught me that sometimes the most important transformations come disguised as disasters, that professional vindication can be more valuable than personal approval, and that the courage to walk away from toxic dynamics creates space for relationships that actually support growth and authenticity. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and opportunities, as Rodriguez Mitchell Cleaning Solutions continued expanding, as our daughters grew and developed their own dreams, and as the foundation work created more pathways for aspiring entrepreneurs. But tonight, surrounded by the evidence of what could be accomplished through persistent effort and unwavering values, I felt the profound peace that came from living a life that honored both personal integrity and professional excellence. The journey from overlooked daughter to respected business leader was complete, but the ongoing work of building something meaningful continued. The most important lesson I'd learned was that success wasn't about proving critics wrong or earning belated approval from people who'd never valued my contribution. It was about building relationships and opportunities that made the world a little better, one clean space and one empowered employee at a time. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.